Hello, good evening, and welcome to Talk Ottawa. I'm your host, James Hendricks, and I want to thank you for tuning in tonight, as always. Big announcement this week from Queen's Park. In fact, some call it the biggest change to childcare and early education the province has seen in generations. The McGuinty government says it will spend $500 million over 2 years to turn local schools into centres for daycare, after-school programs, parental counselling and supports, and most importantly, full-day kindergarten for 4- and 5-year-olds. The idea is to give kids a head start they need to succeed in school and by extension in society. And who could argue with that, you may well ask? Well, elementary school teachers, for one. We'll explain the reasons later. Daycare operators who fear that they'll be put out of business. Parents who feel that the plan puts too much pressure on kids for too few results. And fiscal conservatives who can't see where all the money is going to come from. So begins another great education debate here in the province of Ontario, and we want to know how you in the city of Ottawa feel about that tonight. Where do you stand? Do you support full-day kindergarten? Do you want early childhood programs consolidated in public schools? Do you think we can afford the bill? The number to call is 728-1001, and here to talk to you from the studio tonight, we have, starting on my left, from the Institute of Marriage and Family Canada, a think tank espousing, I suppose, family values and good outcomes for the nuclear family, Andrea Mrozik. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
On my right, we have our frequent contributor to Talk Ottawa, blessedly so, Yasir Naqvi, the MPP for Ottawa Centre. Thanks for coming back.
Thanks, James.
And we have another new visitor to the show here on Talk Ottawa tonight from the Association of Early Childhood Educators of Ontario, Kim Hiska. Thanks for coming on, Kim.
Thank you.
Yasir, as always, you're fronting for the Mucky Mucks at Queen's Park, so we're going to send the first question off to you, and that is, why this plan, why do we need it, and why now?
Well, James, you and I often on this show have talked about, and you've asked me, what is the vision? What is the grand plan? And you recall having this conversation many times. And I've always said to you, the vision is to create a knowledge-based economy, an economy which is for 21st century Ontario. And you can see the pieces coming together, right? In our budget, we talked about reform to our tax system, where we've been talking about green technology and attracting investment dollars. We had a poverty reduction strategy now to reduce child poverty. And this report by Dr. Pascal goes to education, starting very young, making sure that the center of it all is a highly skilled, highly talented workforce. And what better place to start than our children?
Now, this report, and as you mentioned, the report's author, Dr. Charles Pascal, used to be a Deputy Minister of Education here in Ontario, spent 2 years cooking up the report and the recommendations. And his premise is that a quarter of all the children that end up entering grade school here in this province start with major deficits, educational deficits, social deficits, emotional deficits, and basically that if not doomed, they are certainly disadvantaged when it comes to succeeding in school. And by extension, these people are going to be clogging our prisons and filling out our welfare rolls in the future. Is that a fair assessment of
well, I think there's ample studies have been done which talks about both the financial cost and the social cost of poverty, of leaving people behind. And I think he really sort of summarizes that quite aptly in this document, saying, look, we cannot afford to leave people behind. We cannot afford to leave new Canadians behind and their families. We cannot afford to leave behind people who don't have education. Right. And we know they tend to be the vulnerable, the poor. And so we need to create a mechanism by which we treat all Ontarians equally, we treat all their children equally, and he proposes this model of the community hub, you know, school as a center of community building.
So the Premier has pledged $250 million a year over 2 years to get this rolling. It's slated to begin in 2010, but the details have to be ironed out. That's correct?
Yes. Well, I mean, as you can see, the report is quite transformative. Yeah. I mean, it really gives us a blueprint to the future. So obviously, the government wants to take its time during the summer months to study and see how the changes will be brought in and how they will be phased in. This is, and I want to remind our viewers, is part of the platform which was presented by the government in the last election to create full-day kindergarten, and that the Premier will commission a report, which we have now received. That's why $200 million have been allocated for this year, $300 million for next year to get this ball rolling. But exactly how the whole change will take place. We will be outlining that after studying it carefully over the summer.
Okay, and meanwhile, and I'll just tee this up, we'll discuss it in detail as the show goes on, but